Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support. Friends, today we have Frances from the New Basket Workshop. She is the director at the New Basket Workshop. And Frances, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on NRI Samay, where we interview inspirational stories like yours. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, Ramya. It's really a great privilege, and I'm so amazed at how far the story has traveled. It's great.
Right. It's so inspirational to know how two countries can connect and start something so big and help so many in the process. So I'm very curious to know, how did this India-African Craft Design Initiative start? Who has been the builders behind this initiative, and how has this taken place?
Okay, it started, I work for an organization that's been working with craft development, specific craft development in basketry for quite some years. And then traditionally we drew inspiration and we looked to the markets, to Europe and North America. And some time back, we were talking about it, and I said, I've got this feeling that we're actually looking in the wrong direction. Okay. And then we kind of did more research and thought, for so long we've been looking north and we've been looking west for Africa, and in fact we should be looking east and we should be looking at India, because India and Africa share so many things. We share an amazing craft development, craft area, and very poor people in both areas. What has happened in India is that, since I think the development process in India, there's been a huge emphasis on developing craft and design in craft in India. So at the Africa-India Forum Summit 2, which happened in Addis Ababa, in May 2011, the Indian government announced a major initiative. It's announced an initiative to run a pilot program in 5 countries in Africa. Sorry, I'm running on. Do you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so and it was going to be different from other craft initiatives because it was going to be undertaken by India's National Institute of Design. And the Institute, it works very differently from anything I've ever worked with before, because it researches the area that it's going to work in very carefully. So it looks at the materials, it looks at the traditions behind it, it looks at the people making it, looks at the circumstances that they live in and the traditional markets that they sell to. And then they sort of come and do, so we designed a field trip, what we call first in-country field trip and workshop. So the team comes from the NID, looks at it, and the amazing thing with the team from the NID is it's multidisciplined. So it's not just people who only work in craft development. Some of them are furniture designers with architectural backgrounds. Some of them are leather designers. It's a kind of multi-skilled team that would come and look at it. Okay. And then they go back to Ahmedabad and with the knowledge that they've gleaned from the field process and pull together a design initiative. So kind of part of my job is to coordinate between what happens in Africa and India and make sure that we kind of aligned and everybody's happy. Okay. And then we coordinate crafters to go from Africa, from the area that's been researched, to the NID's campus in Ahmedabad. So basically this all fell under, go back again to the very beginning. It fell under India's Ministry of Commerce and Industry, because that's what the NID falls under. So it was very much an initiative coming out of that ministry that said there's more to development in Africa than just these huge ticket items. I mean, we don't only build dams and make roads, but small ticket items that make a huge difference to many small people.
Right.
And that's been the real joy of this program, is that it's touching, it's using this sort of grassroots exchange to make a big difference to people who normally earn very little money.
Right. It's really inspirational. I'm also told that Shimul Vyas from NID is joining our call. Shimul, are you there?
Oh, fantastic.
Hi, Frances. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Shimul. Hi. We keep keeping you up all night.
Wonderful to hear your voice.
Hi, Shimul. This is Ramya from NRI Samay.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us. I understand it's a bit of an odd timing for you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
No, not at all. Not at all.
So I was just asking Frances how the initiative started about.
I happen to be a senior faculty with the National Institute of Design. And academically, I belong to the Faculty of Textile, Apparel and Accessory Design. And I mentor the Lifestyle Accessory Design Program. And currently, I'm heading NID's outreach programs. And that's where, the whole basketry program is under the aegis of the outreach programs. And that's how I'm involved with this whole project.
Oh, I see. Wonderful. I also see that you have been, like you have mentioned, you've been a faculty member with the Lifestyle Accessory Design, LAD, and you led this program for about 8 years or so.
Sure. I have been involved in setting up this postgraduate program and the entire Department of Lifestyle Accessory Design at NID. And I headed it for good 8 years, and now I'm mentoring the program.
Okay. So how different is this initiative with Africa? How is this craft design initiative? How do you think this is scoping up and shaping up?
This initiative, it's different in the sense that over the past 50 years that NID has been engaging with the craft sector, in India. So basically, we've been, for the past 5 decades, we've been more India-focused, and we work at different levels, with the craft sector, and one of it being, skill development and skill training. The other aspect is getting involved with product development and diversification, and, looking at traditional craft techniques and, objects, and how do you find relevance for them in contemporary markets. So that's the second area of intervention. And the third area of intervention is about craft, documentation and dissemination, and essentially focusing on traditional old craft techniques, which are fading away, some of which are, on the verge of extinction. So the whole objective being, how do you capture the techniques and not just looking at the whole documentation process from techniques point of view, but you look at it from its historic perspective, socio-cultural evolution, the people involved, the traditions involved, the whole ecology of, the craft in a particular region in the country. So that is how, we've been looking at so far. And this is different in the sense that with this project, for the first time, the National Institute of Design has gone out of India and trained the weavers, the artisans in the field in the respective countries. And it's our, very first opportunity of doing a cross-cultural, cross-continental exchange kind of a thing. And again, very interesting, where designers from India and NID work in collaboration with, the weavers, the artisans in different countries of Africa, and that too in an absolute rural setting kind of a thing in the weavers, basket weavers environment. So this whole learning and sharing of experiences between NID and India and the African countries, is something that has been extremely enriching, and for NID very gratifying that we've been able to share our experience for the benefit of say the weavers in remote parts of Africa. And
Shimul, if I could elaborate there. Shimul's not.
Sure.
Shimul, what I'm trying to say is she's making it sound very academic, but in fact it's so hands-on, Ramya. They're the most incredible to work with because all of them know how to manipulate the materials that are being used, which is for us in Africa, that's quite different from, quite often we work with designers who will just work in concepts and not with their hands themselves, or with the leather. So working with this diversity from India, first of all, they're working on the ground and they're also working with their hands. So for the artisans in Africa, this is absolutely wonderful, and they really, really appreciate it. I mean, it's some of the things that they say themselves is that these designers know what we do and they understand the techniques we use. So that's, from that point of view, it's been incredible. And the other thing that we're working with India has been amazing, and working with an institute like the NID that understands craft is that they've been able to impart very high quality standards. So it's not just a design, but the quality has to be really perfect. So the feedback from the artisans is they're beginning as well to understand the kind of quality that's needed if you're going to be working with an export market.
Right.
So, these are just interesting points that we see from our end here. And the other thing that's been amazing about working with the team from India is how they kind of move into the environment that they're working in and very much become a part of it, which is also it's very interesting, and I think it gives them a wonderful way of looking at what you're doing. So there's a very strong cultural exchange there too. Would you say that, Shimul?
Oh yes, absolutely. And if I may add a couple of more points to this, also, it's not a top-down approach that we follow. It's not about designers working out the concept designs in isolation and then, handing it over to the weavers to implement it. We try and understand, we very closely observe the kind of techniques they utilize, the kind of materials, if they are using colors, what are the processes of dyeing, what are the, resources, what are the sources used, natural materials and other sources of, dyeing agents and dyeing materials used and so on. And we try and, rather than trying to go and change everything, we try and make our way, we work around, things which are already existing on the ground. And yet, through design, how do you, make them realize that the techniques that they've been sort of practicing, they could really take it to the next level and, diversify into a very, very wide category of objects and products. So basically, it's been a very, working absolutely together in a very, very collaborative manner and having an appreciation for, the high level of skills that they have and so on. But as Frances was saying, it's also making them more aware about, the relevance of quality, the relevance of detailing, the relevance of, working out forms that, could sell in global markets, products that would, be more universally acceptable in terms of their usage and application and so on. Essentially, that has been the approach, that we've been following, and I think we've been fairly the inputs that we've been sort of giving. We've been very happy with the way the weavers in all the three countries, Zimbabwe, Ethiopia, and Ghana, they've been very, very receptive to all the new ideas and inputs that have been, we've been imparting. So that it has been a
and I think Shimul, what I didn't mention, Ramya, and Shimul hasn't had either, is that the process takes place over quite a while. So as I told you before Shimul came on, there's a first exploratory information gathering workshop in the country.
Right.
And then the artisans travel to Ahmedabad. And then there's a third workshop that is back in the country again. And Shimul, do you want to just describe that process as well?
Sure, yeah. So essentially our very first visit is when the team would visit the respective country, and we try and get an overview of the basketry scenario in that particular country. So we do travel quite extensively into the interiors of, the where the basketry clusters are located, and we try and see the whole repertoire of techniques and materials and forms and products available. And based on, the level of skills and how well these weavers are mobilized under as organized groups and so on, we identify, those groups and weavers, and we do a brief scoping workshop with them where we work with them for a couple of days and again try and understand their ways of, working, weaving, dyeing, finishing and so on. And that really helps us, understand where they come from, and what is the caliber and, the level of skills and expertise that they have. And that workshop, is very insightful for us to frame the strategy of, training inputs for the second workshop, which happens in India at NID. And what's really wonderful about the second workshop is that, it emphasizes on the whole approach of training of trainers. So we select together in consultation with the groups and the other experts involved. We identify weavers who have fairly high level of skills and who are also very open and receptive to new ideas, who are open to exploring. So these weavers then come to NID and they work again, in a design environment with the designers from NID. We also get an overview of, how designers from other streams of design function at NID, and it's a very good exposure for them. We take them to retail stores and, expose them to the craft scenario. So that is being, again, it's been working out very well, and that's where we introduce new range of products. And, we work very closely with them in terms of being able to realize the designs into, forms of baskets. And then there is a follow-up workshop in the country again in the field, and that helps us, take the products that have been introduced to the next level of refinement and finishing and any further improvisation that it may call for. And,
and we look at local markets as well.
Sorry, Frances?
No, I was talking about what you're coming to now. It's sort of developing the local markets for the crafters as well as the external markets.
Right. Friends, NRI Samay is a non-profit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. NRI Samay does not rely on corporate funding and our shows are commercial free. We only rely on your donations. Corporate funded media is driven by the TRP rating and profits are blurring the distinction between news and entertainment. Why do our news channels talk so much about cricket, movies, accidents, popular figures' personal lives, babies of heroines, gossips, etc., while they should be covering the struggles of people, inequality in our society, rural issues, and border security issues? Why did our media raise some corruption crusaders to the sky on one day and shut them off completely when graft charges were raised on those corporate sponsors? Media relies so much on the corporate funding and government blessings that they cannot report independently. NRI Samay is different. We don't accept funds from any corporations and hence our shows are commercial free. We completely rely on donations from you. Please consider donating to NRI Samay and please go to nrisamay.com and donate generously. This is the only way together that we can continue NRI Samay. All donations are kept transparent on nrisamay.com. And if you have any questions, please write to nrisamay@gmail.com. So this sounds really interesting, very wonderful and inspiring. So the NID teams who are going, they are also exposed to a different culture of workshops or to a different culture of artisans and weavers who are working. And I'm sure it's a very good knowledge transfer. So could you tell me, Shimul, how many times since the initiative has started, how many times has the NID team traveled to these places to do the knowledge transfer? And I'm trying to understand, is there a language problem? How, if you are going to try and train these artisans and weavers, how are they able to communicate, and how is all this happening?
Sure. The NID team for each country that where we worked on the project, the team NID team has visited the country twice. First, the and the scoping workshop, and the third and the final workshop. So the workshop, the teams have spent there about, I would say, the first visit is anywhere from a week to about 10 days, and the third workshop is about 2 weeks duration, 2 weeks plus. And the workshop, after the workshop, we also set up an exhibition of the outcomes of the entire project, all the three workshops. And this is usually, this is supported by the Indian embassy in the respective country. And we try and bring in, policy makers and, experts involved with crafts, diplomats from, different African countries and, EU and so on. So this is about sharing the outcomes, bringing, visibility to the initiative. Yeah. And also, the larger objective is also inviting NGOs, designers who are into the business of, handloom and handicraft kind of products, and, connecting the products to the markets and looking at possibilities of any organizations, any businesses that would like to carry forward the designs more in, commercial terms.
Right.
So essentially, it's
Okay.
And I'm sorry, what was your second question? I just missed
it. It was the language thing, which is
the language problem.
Actually, Ramya, the language is lovely.
Yeah.
The language is lovely because it's not really a problem at all. But because hands are so much part of the work. And in fact, Shimul, remember when the bamboo weavers came from Zimbabwe, and the bamboo weavers could hardly speak any English. And they were working with master craftsmen from the northeast, from Agatara area. And they didn't have a common language, but they spoke with their hands. It was amazing.
That's wonderful. So it was a big gala of artists.
A medium of their work becomes a medium of communication.
Right.
And when the weavers travel here, they always have a couple of people who speak in English. So, they also help us translate for, weavers who do not necessarily understand English and vice versa, But as Frances very rightly put it, finally, for people who work with their hands, their work becomes a very powerful medium of, communication. So honestly, language has never been a barrier at all.
That's wonderful. So how often have these weavers traveled to India for any workshops or exhibitions?
So again
3 times now.
So sorry, Frances?
No, I was, you carry on. It's the weavers have come from Zambia, Zimbabwe, and Ghana and Ethiopia. They've all traveled to Ahmedabad. But they're kind of their anecdotal things too, Ramya, which I think we miss in the big picture. Is like when we were working in Ahmedabad in December, Shimul understands leather very well. So she said to the work weavers from Ghana, she said, I want 2 women who are going to work with leather. And like all the very top people said, oh no, women never touch leather. And Shimul said, I want some women who will work with leather. And 2 young women stepped forward. And Shimul, they turned into the most brilliant craftswomen working with leather, young Ghanaian women.
Oh, yes.
And they're showing such promise with the leather. Yeah. quite a lot of talent, and everyone, and then this was in the thing, oh no, women don't work with leather. I mean, it was very, it was an interesting development. So in every workshop, we get kind of some very interesting developments happening.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, and Frances, you're having said that, what we also try and see is what are the other locally available materials and more, natural materials. So Ghana has, some amount of supply of leather, which has been used for, covering the baskets of, the handles of the baskets. And Ghana is, it has a lot of rich teak wood. So we also try and see that if some of these local materials could be combined with, the basket weaving, and that's also what we've been experimenting with Ghana and, with a bit of Ethiopia and Zimbabwe also. So, again, how do you bring in a second material to enhance the perceived and the price value of the product, so that you can even elevate it, you can peg it at a, at an upmarket kind of a product, and bringing in a sense of variety and diversity and sense of newness to the products, the existing basketry products and the materials.
Right. So as I understand, you're trying to also make sure, just apart from basket weaving, you want to try to use the locally available materials like leather and teak wood and try to incorporate them and see what possibilities you can come up with. That's very interesting.
Absolutely.
So Frances, my question would be to you. What typically is the lifestyle of these craftswomen? Is that their only livelihood? And typically, what would a work day in a craftswoman's day look like?
That's a really interesting question, Ramya. Most of the women are they're subsistence farmers. So for instance, we're about to go to Ghana now, and we're trying to squeeze our next trip in before the rainy season starts and they all start farming. It's the same for Zimbabwe and Ethiopia. So they're subsistence farmers, which feeds them. But basket making is their one way of earning cash, and they need cash for the same thing women all over the world need it. They need it to send their children to school and buy buy clothes and that kind of thing. So they're typical. I mean, I find that it's quite interesting. And Shimul will bear me out, but I think the rural women in Africa face very similar hardships to rural women in India, who live similarly. who are subsistence farmers, but who raise cash from making things. And like women in India, one's always just staggered at their resilience and their strengths. I mean, they really are extraordinary. So ultimately, the whole program is about increasing livelihood opportunities for rural women in Africa, drawing on the skills of India to make those livelihood opportunities better. I'm not sure if I've answered your question properly. Sorry, Ramya.
No, it definitely did answer. So definitely this is going to be a better opportunity for their livelihood to increase and, as you said, improvements to their lives, and also I believe boosting and encouraging their confidence and guiding them in a different direction as well. So that's really interesting. So and now that you have...
I'd just like to... Sorry to interrupt, but I'd just like to add one more point to what Frances has just said. And very interestingly, because the basket weavers are at in the social system, the social structure at the bottom, end of the structure. Interestingly, when the bamboo weavers came here from Zimbabwe, they said that when we go back and, just because of the training that we've got and, we've acquired new skills and we're going back with new set of tools and so on, they felt that, their social perception, the way they are going to be perceived in their community and the society, it's going to be a major upliftment of, their image and how they are perceived. And therefore they feel, quite emancipated that way also in a social context. So in economic terms, definitely about, better livelihood opportunities and enhance income generation possibilities, and also it's about, socially how they are going to be looked at by their community. So that is the other, sort of,
Right. So this experience definitely must have enriched their lives in a lot more ways that we can maybe not see and understand on a day-to-day perspective.
Sure. Yeah, but as Frances
said, they're intangible. They are definitely intangible.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, please go ahead. Sorry.
I wanted to understand who is sponsoring. Shimul, this question would be to you. Right now, with this initiative, who is sponsoring and what is the typical budget we look at? And in case, with the elections coming up, if there is a change in the government, do you think this is going to go ahead without any hiccups, or will there be any kind of impact on initiatives like this? What do you think?
Yeah, so essentially this has been financially supported by the Ministry of External Affairs. However, the whole mentoring and guiding and the whole initiative has been driven by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And, Mr. Anand Sharma has been extremely, what shall I say, he's been a major driving force in driving this initiative. And even the fact that between India and the continent of Africa, there are lots of, like Frances mentioned, the India-Africa Forum Summit, and India, investing into Africa at several levels and so on. So this is one such project, which is, I don't know what to call it, Frances, but it's a small project, but it's a very humble project, which is, aiming to impact people at the grassroots level, and there is a lot of humility about this initiative at one level. So that is one thing. Frances will be better off, reflecting on the budget perhaps. And even if there is a change of government, I think as long as India as a country feels committed towards, the development of Africa and, what it could contribute, as a country, one doesn't necessarily see that if there is a change of government, it may stall the program. So as long as the commitment remains, whoever be in power in New Delhi or, we do hope that, it doesn't, there's no bottleneck and the program continues with, the same support and, what has been coming in so far. So that's what we feel, Frances, you want to
I think we're also confident. No, I think we're confident, Ramya, because, India's engagement with Africa commercially increases exponentially every year anyway. So there's a strong vested interest by Indian business in Africa. As Shimul mentioned, this was a small, as a foreign intervention, this was quite a small ticket item with, so it was basically $200,000 US dollars per country.
Okay.
So, and that was committed at the Africa-India Forum Summit. So I don't think, I don't know. I can't speak for India, but I assume that money was allocated and it stays allocated.
Okay. So this budget of $200,000 US dollars, is it being allocated every year? Did I understand that right?
No, it's allocated per country, per program, per country.
Okay. So what do you think is the... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's for country. So in 2012-13, we work in Zimbabwe, and 13-14 is it's Ethiopia and Ghana, and then other countries will follow in the next financial year.
Okay, so for now, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Zimbabwe, these seem to be the active countries where this initiative is being driven. Okay.
And Ethiopia.
And Ethiopia, right. These 3 countries.
Friends, NRI Samay is a non-profit independent alternate media from Los Angeles, USA, which brings positive stories from grassroots activists from all corners of India and across the world. If you have any interesting episode you would like NRI Samay to cover, we will be happy to do so. NRI Samay would also like to encourage amateur journalists who have a flair for highlighting current events. You can be part of our citizen journalist team. You could cover an important event, interview victims of an atrocity, or document an inspirational story. The idea is to have a mix of experience throughout all parts of the world, preferably supported by an audio or a video clip of your story to be aired, which will be the curtain raiser. You can also submit your opinion articles on important topics to NRI Samay. We will be happy to put it on nrisamay.com in the opinion section. All your work will be credited only to you. And if you're interested, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com.
All right. So for now, I wanted to also focus about the knowledge transfer has happened, the workshops are being conducted. So are there any specific ways you preserve this knowledge transfer? And also I wanted to know what improvements it has what improvements have you seen because of this project in terms of the business of these basket weavers, their livelihood increase? How do you think it has affected?
Should I speak?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Ramya, with craft product development, it always takes at least 2 years before you can really see the financial flows happening through to the communities. So with Zimbabwe, what's happened is some of the products have been coming through to South Africa, and they've been represented at trade shows here. And the feedback we're getting from buyers here and also in Zimbabwe is we're starting to feel a strong flow of orders increasing to those organizations that worked with us. One of the things that we try to do is we try to work on the ground with existing organizations. So it's not just a random group of women. It's actually a structured organization that's capable of handling orders. Otherwise, it's a bit like pouring water into the sand. So we need, so I mean, that's part of our research, is to make sure that we're working with viable groups that can carry the benefits forward. So, for instance, in Zimbabwe, we worked with a specific bamboo making group that's got good roots in the community, and it's got a good office structure. So they will carry on. They've become the repository of the learning, and they will carry on. They'll carry on developing and doing the marketing. And it's the same with cipher workers that we worked with in Zimbabwe. So in Ghana, for instance, we work with a local organization there called Aid to Artisans Ghana. And Aid to Artisans Ghana and Ghana's university, the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, they will be the repositories of the training that's been imparted. So one of the lovely things that the woman who runs Aid to Artisans Ghana, Bridget Kerr-Martin-Darko, said to us is she said, you know, even if we develop a product now and we don't use it for 3 years, we'll come back to that in 3 years' time, and then it may become a really viable product. So she said nothing that's happened in the workshops is lost.
Right.
As long as it's there, they will pick it up and use it at another time. So that's why it's also been very nice working with organizations that will hold the learning.
Right.
And also going into the future, because one of our plans for the longer term is the NID would like to set up a long-term institution, and one of its things will be to be able to monitor how effective the interventions were over a much longer period, so that we're able to say, look, we did this in 2011, and in 2015, these are the results of that input.
Right. So there's a specific direction and a plan in action. So yeah, wishing you luck for the same. So with this initiative and this cross training, did you make any specific changes in the products that were being designed or made? Any specific design changes? And do you see an increase in the number of products they have been making? And where do you market these products? I mean, how do you sell them to buyers, to potential buyers?
I'll take the first part of the question, and I'll request Frances to answer the second one. Just to give you an example of Ghana, right now, they're mainly making baskets using the elephant grass. It's a kind of straw. And baskets in, different shapes and with different handles and different sizes. But, so basically the product portfolio is only about baskets. And we looked at that, and what's interesting is that in Ghana, the level of skills of the weavers is of extremely high caliber. Their innate understanding of color and form and all that is wonderful. So it was a challenge for the NIB team to, conceive the training and say what do we focus on therefore. And what's interesting is that we have been through the intervention and the training workshops, we've been basically able to diversify the range of products. So the weaving technique and the material remains the same, but we've gone into making a whole range of, space-oriented products and lifestyle products, be it bags and containers and floor cushions and lightings and, table settings and tabletop products and so on. From the form of a basket, it has moved into a very, very diversified range of space-related accessory products. So, and they were amazed to see that their own very technique could be extended into, such a huge variety of product applications.
Right.
Yeah, Frances?
Yeah, so the marketing, this is our very big challenge now. Because to an extent we're relying on the organizations in the countries to carry the marketing. We are branding it, and we've come up with a really nice brand name. So it's called Designing the Difference, and it'll be Designing the Difference Zimbabwe, or Designing the Difference Ethiopia, Designing the Difference Ghana. But what we're hoping as part of our ongoing work is really to assist the countries and the organizations involved to get more marketing done on the internet, which is kind of more internationally available. But it's certainly part of our ongoing focus.
Okay, so do we see these products being maybe potentially down the line? Do we see any kind of presence online for buying? I mean, any platform where these can be exported to other countries where other people also can buy these products, these baskets, or the diversified range of products that are being done?
Yeah. It's part of our long-term planning is that there would be, so if you went onto the NID's website, you could follow through to this platform, which would direct you to the various organizations' websites on their catalogs.
I see. Okay. All right. So do you think these products are mainly household items, the products that are being made, the baskets, the bags? How do you think we can branch out to different sectors apart from household items? How do you think these items can be used?
Yeah, these apply to any kind of interior spaces. So definitely homes and residences is, one category of spaces. But if you look at the whole hospitality business and, hotels and resorts and so on, they have a huge, they could be huge takers for these products. Because these are, what we've done is also we retain the local essence in the products. So it could really apply in a wonderful way for the, hospitality business, the restaurants or, hotels and even, so it could definitely, it's not restricted only to residential spaces.
Right. So there is a good potential for market from different kinds of industries, like you mentioned, hotel, maybe tourism, and household residences.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wonderful.
And also when we work on, when we design the forms and the colors and the utility, we always keep in mind two things, that some products must have very regional local flavor. You look at it and it comes from Africa, it comes from Ghana, Ethiopia, Zimbabwe, and so on. But parallelly, we also, have another range or another set of colorway, which is extremely global and universal in its, sensibility. So things like, a product in its natural color, like the, natural color of the straw, or, the whole thing of indigo, blue indigos with natural color, or, the natural color with blacks and so on. These are all, very, very contemporary classic combinations,
Right.
So that is something we also parallelly retain, so that the market doesn't get restricted only to, to the domestic market, but, it's largely acceptable globally.
Very true, very true. So I just wanted to know, is there a particular website where any of our viewers or listeners, they can access and get more information and see the products that the weavers are making? Any website where we can access all of this information?
I think at the moment the best place to look is at the Facebook link for the National Institute of Design. That's got the most products at the moment. We're very aware of the fact that we actually have to formalize this and make the market links much stronger. Because this is the first time an initiative like this has ever happened. It's a lot of it is like forming it as we go along. I mean, the way we approached each country and the way we developed the procedure has been a kind of, well, this is the first time, and let's try it out. So these are kind of sometimes these are problems that as something comes up, like, oh, we've got to address this differently. So I mean, I think what the NID will be doing quite shortly is we've developed a series of really beautiful pamphlets for each country, and those will probably go online quite soon, so that you can see the visuals there. Yeah.
Right. So I think that'll definitely give you more exposure in viewers and listeners for our show or anywhere else to understand what's happening and how this whole initiative is helping both of these countries. So I think I've had a really interesting conversation, understanding both of you explain how everything has been going on so far. So Shimul, I have a couple of questions to get some information from you. What do you think, or how do you think NID or India as a whole has benefited from this whole experience? And do you think there could be any programs in future where India could learn something from Africa, from these local weavers, any techniques, any programs, initiatives that could help India learn from Africa?
I think for us, for NID, particularly, it's been a very enriching experience, being, exposed to a completely new culture and new tradition and, I mean, the whole new vocabulary of craft techniques and materials and forms and colors. So for us, as designers, it has been a peep into another culture, and how do you sort of soak in that culture and the elements of the culture, and how you extend that into tangible form of products. That has been quite what shall I say, a very gratifying experience, and it's been an immense opportunity to learn from that experience. And I think also, how do you adapt to situations on the ground? Because in India, the conditions where we go and all of that, the scenarios are fairly predictable. When you're working in another country and another culture altogether, you can predict only till so much, and you do have to land up there and play it by the ear. It's really, taught us how to just go out there, observe, and you have to start adapting to whatever the scenario and the conditions on the ground offered at that point of time. So that's again something that has been very interesting learning for us. And as a country, I think Africa's also different countries have these different craft traditions. And for a country like India, who always has had this appreciation of things which are handcrafted, and the traditions behind this, and the whole repertoire of handcrafting of products and things like that, that has been, again, to be able to appreciate and admire that also has been wonderful. And again, in India and other parts of the world, we talk about this whole thing of sustainability, and the fact is that in the whole process of globalization, there has been, for us also, there has been a disconnect. But whether you look at craft practices in India or Africa or, other parts of the world, I think some of these craft processes and, the practices have been so very sustainable in nature, like in Zimbabwe, when we were working with the Sisal group, their materials, it's all natural materials, natural fibers. So their raw materials come from nature, their dyes and colors come from nature, which are leaves and fruits and seeds and, flowers of trees and shrubs and plants and so on. And they're just working with the most basic tools, Even the needle that they use comes from a broken spoke of an umbrella. So I think that, it's a practice which is as sustainable as it can get. And sometimes we try and intellectualize the whole concept of, eco-friendly and what's sustainable and carbon footprints and all that. But what's very, very starkly revealing is that, this is something that is, that's what the artisans are living and practicing day in and day out. So that way, one feels wonderful about these aspects and, these things that we have been able to experience as a country and, as a team of designers from NID.
So I think this initiative, or it's basically with you're trying to use as less tools as possible. You're trying to absorb everything from nature, use what is available to us.
What is available to us and what is eventually going to be accessible to the weavers, because with the bamboo, one can always think of introducing mechanized, hand tools and machines and equipment, but if one is very realistic about the scenario out of which, or where the conditions in which the weavers are working, most of the times they don't even have electricity and so on. So basically it's about, how can design be utilized very powerfully, wherein it's engaging most limited, most minimal resources, and yet, this whole convergence of craft and design coming together, how can it produce, outcomes of, which are, very, very, what shall I say, in terms of products and the whole handcrafted thing, how beautifully, that could be created. And that's for, that too for, that should have some commercial relevance.
Right. So make the best out of what minimal resources we have. I mean, it definitely makes sense. It makes sense to make the best out of what we have. So I think I'm pretty much really enriched with this experience of talking to both of you and understanding how two countries came together to bring about such a wonderful initiative. I really wish the best to all the weavers out there in Ghana, Zimbabwe, and I also appreciate the initiative by India to approach this issue. So thank you so much. Thank you, Shimul. Thank you, Frances.
Thank you so much
to both of you from NRI Samay team for taking out the time and talking to us.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.